Hi, so here we are. I'm very excited this evening to be doing my first interview through Embody Consulting with the wonderful Emily Challis. Hello, Emily.
Hi.
Hi. So to give you a tiny bit of background, Emily has recently been crowned the absolute honour of becoming Australia's first female Supercoach winner. So Emily, just for the uneducated, can you please give us a brief idea of what Supercoach actually is?
Yeah, no problem. So Supercoach is a form of fantasy football. So you basically pretend to be a coach. I call it Supercoach, but it's referring to AFL football, of course.
Yes.
So Supercoach actually do lots of other formats as well. So about 170,000 people play all around Australia, and you start at round 1 and you finish at round 23. So it's a whole year game of the AFL pretty much. So you have to select 30 players and you can select them from any team of the 18 in the competition. And you have a budget of 10 million. Now that sounds a lot, but it's not really when you compare that. And you've got to field defenders, midfielders, ruck, and forwards. So very popular strategy is called guns and rookies. So guns, which are about 600,000 players, and then the rookies, which are about 120,000. So you fill them up. But then there's mid prices and all of that. Anyway, too much detail. And then so every round you have your team and your players. So what they do on the field equals to fantasy points or Supercoach points. So handballs, kicks,
and that
tackles.
every week, based on their performance, is how you accrue points.
Your points, yeah. So round 1, all your players play, and then you get your total, and then you get to make 2 trades, and then round 2 happens. So pretty much the aim of it is you want to foster these cash cows, so the rookies, and make as much money as possible to fill your team to make premium. So you can have, and you want the best of the best, but there's buys, so teams to miss out, and there's all these complicated, and then COVID just likes to sprinkle a little bit of complications as well.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, so it's a long game.
It's really long. Yeah, exactly. You're really talking about being present in the process for most of the year. And, I imagine that's no small feat in terms of the mental energy required to keep going with something like that and really stay excited. So what do you think triggered your interest in Supercoach? I mean, obviously, you're a huge Cats fan, but beyond that, there must be something about it that really triggered your interest. What do you think that was?
Yeah, I've always loved numbers. I'm not necessarily good at maths, but I love numbers and formulas. I did really well, like in further. I don't know if that's still a thing. Yeah, further, like methods wasn't really my thing, but I actually did really well in further. I actually was the top first percentile in further because formulas, stats, and then I did a little bit of I did OT, but I also did psychology for a major in psychology as well. So lots of the statistics and analyzing the data. So I really love that.
Yes.
So I was actually started Supercoach in 2013 when I first had Harry, and I don't want to be rude.
So Harry's your oldest.
Harry's my oldest, yeah. And I don't want to be rude when I say that I was bored. Like, I've got a newborn. Like,
it's really boring. No, it is boring.
I mean, you're exhausted.
It's beautiful, but it's really boring.
Well, you don't have a lot of time, but it's just and I have I'm an OT. I work with special needs kids, and it can be really.
So Emily is an occupational therapist at a special school.
Yeah, and I have done that for all of my career, and very busy days, and you're always planning, problem solving, and using your clinical thinking. And I just think I missed that. I mean, I missed that little component as well, being a mum. Apart from, is he hungry or is he tired?
Yes, and there's really nothing like it, is there? That time where the rhythms of a new baby I mean, it never happens again, because as soon as they grow up, you never really get that time again. They should just stay small their whole lives. But yeah, there's nothing like it. And I think, for someone so cerebral, it is a bit of a shock, and you are looking for stimulation mentally, and why not, to be fair.
Yeah.
So that's when you really got into it, and then you just, enjoyed kind of honing your skills season by season.
Yes, yep. So that's 2013. I had a couple of years off, and then I went back onto it, and I did hone my skills. And people are just like, oh, what's the key? And I'm just like, really just having a good go.
Yes.
And not giving up and learning. I think I have listened. I am embarrassed to actually do the total of how many podcasts, because I love listening to podcasts. I used to drive to Ballarat.
Same.
And I used to listen, and people would ask me what I would listen to, and I say, "Oh, Super Coach podcast," and they just be like looking at me.
Like, so how many hours did you add up then?
Oh, I'm too embarrassed to, but hundreds and hundreds of hours.
But it's Ballarat's. I mean, we're in Geelong, so Ballarat's an hour 15 one way, so that's 2.5 hours in a day. So I would be surprised if it wasn't hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Yeah, so hundreds and hundreds of hours. So, well, to give you an idea, one of my favorite podcasts, I started listening to them maybe in their first season. They've just clicked over 200 episodes, and their average goes about an hour. So that's just one podcast. Sure. So I learn a lot, and I'm in lots of different chat rooms through Twitter. And you're just learning. And I made mistakes. I made a huge amount of mistakes when I was learning. But you've just got to. It's a real art form as well. And I'm not wanting to bore you, but there's literally complexities, because with your captain, so you get double, and there's a loophole where you get a second chance. So you VC someone, and you can see how they score. You decide whether you're going to take that, or whether you get a captain score. So there's lots of complexities. There's loopholing, where you can take players from your bench and see their score, and then put a basically dummy person on the field. So there's lots of really things that take a little while to get used to.
Yes, I imagine that's not something that you'd take advantage of first time round. You wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, that's right. So,
but look, so clever. And I think, I mean, you've introduced Supercoach beautifully, but what you didn't say was that 160,000 people were registered this year. Is that right?
Yep.
So Emily beat 159,000. No, I can't even do the maths, Emily. You beat a lot of people.
Yes. I
160,000 minus 1.
159,999. However,
yes.
I think I think there might be well, we can go on to this a little bit later, but there might have been a couple of doubles, because some people, which is not legal, by the way, so you're only meant to have one team, but we might talk about that later if you want.
Let's that was let's talk about that. So you've always had a very data analytics type of brain, and is there anything you can kind of take from that in terms of, like habit forming, creating like a mental discipline? It's a bit of an abstract question, but I've been really interested in, I don't know if you've read that book, Atomic Habits. So it's kind of like integrating habits into your routine, however small they may be, and learning to take very small triggers in your day that then mean that now I will do this habit. Were you conscious of it, or did you just love doing it so much that you would just easily find opportunities to practice your skills?
I did love it, and I did get obsessed with it. I definitely made some changes before I started this season. And for example, I just didn't let myself get caught up. I actually made to make that mental decision to be very purposeful with my team, with my decision making, and that everything had to be there for a purpose, rather than so I don't know, I'll just give you an example, and then you can try to make it more relevant to everyone. Is I would have my team, and then I would literally you just go, oh, in, out, in, out, out. And then before you know it, you've got a team I don't even recognize. So it's just, and you're just doing things for the sake of doing things, and you're like being productive, but you're actually not actually thinking about every single thing you're doing and the decision-making process. And I took a step back, and I probably did that more this year, is what things did I value, and trying to see it in the whole picture rather than individual.
Okay.
Yeah, and also I did a little bit of well, what can I call it? I had to work on my habits of actually putting the phone down and restricting my screen time. It was really being a bit more purposeful with my screen time, and like I put the screen time, like the Apple phone, I think.
Oh yes, the timer thing.
The timer thing of how many hours in the day, and like for also little things of like when you should actually look on Twitter or do your research. But if it was a Tuesday, for example, and the next match was Friday, you didn't really have to, unless it was a really complicated week, you didn't really have to be on your phone. Maybe listen to that podcast, but be really disciplined is what I would,
And I think, and that's one of the interesting things about so many of us using our phones as our primary tool. It's like you can be so incredibly productive, but at the same time, the appeal of flipping between different platforms is just so high, right? Because it's right there, and it's so easy to kind of lose focus. And in that book I was discussing the Atomic Habits. Like they were just talking about things like, if it's Supercoach related, I'll use my laptop, versus if it's social media related, I'll use my phone, like whatever, you know what I mean? Like just sort of trying to create different places for different habits so that one doesn't find oneself going down the rabbit hole of, who's talking crap about me on Twitter today. Yeah. And speaking of, some people said some mean things. Tell me what they said.